Hello again and welcome back to our course on Access 2013 Advanced. In the previous section we started looking at the Access event model, and I hope you've successfully managed to do the exercise. So you've managed to do your first bit of VBA coding, and you now have a timed welcome screen, a splash screen. Stays on the screen for 6 seconds on the movies database and then disappears. We're now going to turn our attention to the switchboard that you can see in the college student database, and we're going to look at developing the same kind of switchboard for the movies database. Let's start by looking at how the switchboard works in the student database. Now basically we have a form. It's got a version number there. Let's just put on there as a label on the form and a heading there and an image. And then we have 4 buttons. Notice that the buttons have images on them. In the top 2 we have some little clip art images, one supposedly showing some students and another one showing a student with their guardians. And then we have a couple of other, if you like, more conventional images. We have a little access symbol and then we have a little exit symbol going out of a door. Each of these 4 buttons has got some VBA code associated with it. And if I right click on the switchboard and click on Design View and then click on Event, look at what's selected. We currently have the form selected. Let's just scroll up and down. There's not actually any code associated with the form, but if I choose one of the buttons I will see some code. Now notice how the naming of those buttons has really helped me to locate. CMD, the prefix I use for command buttons. Some of the labels are not so easy. You don't really know which one label 23 is. When you put labels on a form, it's a much better idea to put more meaningful names for the labels as well. But let's go to the CMD about code. There's the event procedure. It's on click, so something will happen when I click the About button. And now if I click to go in to look at the event procedure, what I find, not surprisingly, is that the module that's selected, the class module on the left, is the FRM switchboard class module. And then I have a number of procedures. I've got an empty procedure, command courses. That's almost certainly a button that was taken off this form at some stage. It's an empty procedure, so I'm going to cut it out. And then I've got 4 commands. I've got an about command, an exit command, a guardians command, and a student command. Let's look at the about one first of all. Private sub command about underscore click. That means if I click the about button, then I have a string str form name, and it's given the value of frm about, and then do command open form followed by the form name in brackets. Now in this case the form name is held in the variable str form name. Notice within this procedure there is no declaration for the variable str form name, but it is declared as a public variable near the top of the module, which means that it's not only available within this module, but it will be available to other modules as well. Now of course I could have declared the form name as a local variable within a procedure. I could have made it a private one here, but that's the choice that was made in this case. And basically if you want a button when you click it to open a form, that's typical of the sort of code that you would use. Now 2 of the other subs down there, one for the command guardians button and one for the command students button, pretty much follow exactly the same pattern. But the one I'm particularly interested in now is the exit button VBA code. Command exit click. What if I click the exit button? Because that demonstrates another very useful, very important point. Now let me just make it a little bit easier to see that one by dragging the divider across there. You've already seen the message box command, but there is also a message box function. It's still called message box, but in this case it has parameters in round brackets. and because it's a function, it returns a value. Now in this particular case, let's first of all concentrate on the message box function. The message box function begins with the actual message you want to put out, and the actual message is, are you sure you want to exit? So this is a question to the user. And then the second parameter, VB yes no, determines which buttons appear on the message box. And VB yes no means you get a yes button and a no button. The exit database, the third parameter, is basically the title for the message box. Now the user will press one of those two buttons. They'll press the button whose return value is VB yes, or they'll press the button whose return value is VB no. If they press the VB yes button, then VB yes is the value that is returned to your sub. And what the if statement here is doing is saying if the value returned by the message box equals VB yes, then do command.quit, which basically means quit, exit access, exit the database, shut the whole thing down. If, on the other hand, the person presses the no button, the value returned by the function message box is the equivalent of VB no, and in fact, in this case, nothing happens. And basically what we're doing here is, rather than just giving a button that somebody might press by accident, we're asking them a question. We're saying, are you sure you want to exit? And if they say, oh, I didn't mean to press that, and they press the no button, well, no harm done. If they press yes, then we exit the database. Let's see that particular button in action. So I'm going to click the exit button. There's the question. Notice exit database in the title. Are you sure you want to exit? No, no harm done. Let's try it again. Press yes. It's gone. So we have 4 subs there. 3 of them are responsible for opening forms. 1 of them causes a quit and exit of access. Each of them should have comments. Even if the comments only identify the person that wrote the sub, there should be comments. If they were more complex than this, then a little comment or two explaining what they're doing is a good idea as well. If in fact you've got a number of people working on an Access database, you can use the comments to track the changes that have been made throughout the life of each sub, and that helps in identifying why the particular sub finished up the way it did. You can possibly go back to the last person that made a change to it to just check with them what change they made and why they made it, and so on. So let me just put a comment in one of these. So there you see, I've identified me as the author and said ask user to confirm exit, if confirmed quit access. And the other thing that is sadly lacking here is any kind of error handling. Now error handling is very important. Even if you don't expect to get errors, they do happen, and they quite often happen in very unexpected situations. And one of the things about adding error handling to all of your VBA subs and functions is that it makes you think in each case about what might go wrong. Now let's take this Command Guardians click sub down here. This is what happens when we click on the CMD Guardians button. And basically what it says is we open that form. Now what could go wrong? Well, the most likely thing to go wrong is that the form is missing or damaged in some way. I guess there are other possibilities. You may be running on a PC where you're running low on memory and there isn't enough memory to open a form. But in any case, if in the unlikely event that you had an error there, you would want to control what happened. And normally what happens in error handling is that you put at the beginning of a sub an on error statement. You've seen this one before. On error go to, and then you put a label. Now generally speaking we put a meaningful name, and we tend not to use the same name over and over again. Some people always use the name of the particular sub that they're in, so they might call this something like And then what they will do is to take that label, copy, paste it down here, and you may recall you need a colon at the end to make it into a label. Then we want a string to display what the error message is. And different people structure the rest of this in different ways. Basically, if we get this error and we go to that label and then we use a message box to display the standard string error $, which gives us a description of the error, we'll just hit the end of the sub, and that's it, because we don't want to do anything. We just want the message box giving the error, and then we'll just carry on. The problem is, of course, that if you don't get an error when you try to open the form, you do this do command open form, it works fine. You're going to run into that error code as well. So what you need here is an independent go-to statement, and we're going to go to something called command guardians click exit, and then we need another label down here called exit. Now, different people will structure that in different ways, but that's a perfectly viable way of structuring that sort of routine. I normally always indent these statements. However, labels cannot be indented. They must start in column 1. So there we are. There's our command guardians click routine with error handling included. Now, it's always a good idea when you've done something like this to basically follow the logic through and make sure that it still makes sense. So if I click the Guardians button, first of all we set an on error condition. When you've set an on error condition like this one, it stays set until you change it. So right through to the end of this procedure, this is the on error condition. If anything goes wrong, go to that label, Guardians click that's that one there. So we set the form name, we open the form, and then if everything's still okay, we go to exit, which is fine. If anything goes wrong earlier on, we jump to Guardians click we put the message box out describing what the error is with the standard string error $, which is the description of the error, and then we finish up at the exit label anyway. So that looks fine. Let's give that a test. Let's first of all try opening the Guardians form. Well, it certainly still opens the Guardians form. Now, I should emphasize that I'm doing this on a copy of this database, because sometimes changing the names of things in Access can be a little bit of a dangerous thing to do. But in order to simulate the Guardian list going missing, I'm just going to rename it. I'm going to call it Guardian List 1. How's that? Now let's try opening the Guardian list and see what happens. And that's the message that I get as a result of my error handler. So that's working okay as well. Just going to rename that back again. Try opening the Guardians list now, and it's fine again. So in this section we've looked at responding to a number of other events using VBA code in Access 2013, and we've looked at developing error handlers as well. We have a little more of both of those still to do, and I need to talk to you about VBA help. That's what we're going to cover in the third section here on the basics of Access events. Please join me for that in the next section.